Hi folks, and welcome back to Fishing with Den. So now we've got the build of the main fishing seat box all sorted out and completed. Now it's time to start on the accessories. And so today I'm going to start building two side trays. Now I was toying with the idea of building them to the same size as the shape of the seat and then mounting them underneath. But in fact there's a couple of reasons I haven't, which I won't go into now. I've just decided I'm going to build them very similar to this one. Now, this is one I've been using for years and years. It's just aluminium, as you can see. I think the only real difference is that I'm going to be making use of square tube aluminium down here rather than this round stuff. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that shortly. It'll be done on the table saw. On the old trays I use this 25mm or 1-inch square aluminium tube as the main support beam. But I'm now using 25mm legs, as you know, on the box. So I'm going to this material here. This is the same material I used on the box. It's 520mm long, and it's 38mm by 25mm by 2mm, and this is now going to give me all the structural support I need. First thing I've got to do is I've got to drill the 1-inch holes at the 2 points here, which I've marked up. Should be able to see that hopefully. But basically that's 90mm in from the edges to the centres. I've set the drill press up exactly the same as I did for the main cross members on the fishing tackle box. The midpoint of the aluminium here and 90mm in. Then it's just a question of drilling these 25mm holes. That's both holes drilled. This one is exactly 25mm, although I've just opened it out a little bit to make it a bit of a slightly looser fit on the leg. Don't want anything catching. This one I've elongated a little that way because when I built the thing, there's always going to be a little bit of tolerance in there. So this one slightly elongated. Let me show you how it fits. This is the back hole, which is the one I'm going to be screwing into mostly. And this is the front. You can see this one's a bit less of a fit. It will still have a bolt in there, but this is really the one I'm going to be referencing from. So just before I start to do the assembly of the trays, I'm going to put in a thing called a threaded insert. That's what I'm talking about. It's actually a thing called a rivet, and it gets inserted through the side piece here. These are 6mm threads, and I think the outside is something like 9mm. So it's just a question of drilling a hole in there, and then you hit the slightly more problematic part. You can't fit a rivet through that way, like that. This way, sorry. Probably the easiest way to show you. There we go. Because that would impede the leg. So I've done another video, which I'll post up a little pop-up up here, and I'll put a link in the description box. And that way you'll be able to see exactly how you put one of these in. I'm not going to go through it again today because it's just going to add another 3 minutes onto this video, and it's kind of pointless when there is a specific video already out there. And that's a threaded inserts fitted, as you can see. You probably also noticed that these don't look like rivets, and that's because I wasn't using rivets on this one. Some years ago I had these two-part threaded inserts made by a manufacturer, so very few of you are going to have anything like that, so you will have to use the rivets as I explained in the video. And at this point we've got to cut some square holes. So we're not going to do it with a drill, we're going to do it with a table saw. I've cut one already just to show you, and if you look at what I've done here, I've just set the teeth of the table saw up so that they don't quite go through the outer skin of this member here. But then if I put this in, it would be a nice tight fit. So what I've got to do is just break out all of that, tidy it all up, and then we can insert this in that way there. If you haven't got a table saw, then you can just do what I did before, which take a piece of round 16mm and just drill a hole and fix it in the same kind of way. A word of warning. On the table saw here, when you're cutting it, excuse me, it does produce an awful lot of swarf and it does fly all over the place. Now I have this device here, which is to catch all of that. If you don't have this or something similar, or at the very least safety glasses, don't do it. Safety first all the time. And one final thing on safety is the blade itself. Don't go thinking you can use your normal woodworking blade for cutting aluminium, because you can't, and it's dangerous. The blade I'm using here costs a little bit more, but it's designed to cut aluminium, plastic and wood. It's really paramount importance that you don't actually try and use a standard wood blade. So safety first all the time. That's the holes cleaned up. I've just filed around and just taken off the edges there. Now we can use some of this 20mm square tube aluminium and a 1mm strip. These are both 125mm long and they go into the square hole and it's a nice firm fit. Next we take the arms and we fit those over the top, both ends, and now you can probably make out that we've got the main support here, that's the arms, and the tray is going to sit in here. And the next thing we have to do is to create one of these out of just right angle aluminium. This is 25mm by 25mm aluminium, and once it's fitted it will go like that. So let me show you how we do this. I've cut this right angle piece of aluminium to 1200mm long. It's slightly longer than I need, but I can always trim off at the end to make it fit properly. I've also marked on here, that line there, the 90-degree line, is 330mm, which is the same length as this arm here. But I've also used one of these little 45-degree protractors to measure and mark the right angles that we're going to be cutting out. You may notice, if I can get the light to, there we go. You may notice that at the bottom the lines don't necessarily quite intersect with the 90-degree line, and that's because when we cut those two you want a little bit of a gap, otherwise it doesn't bend too well. I've then gone down to the 453mm mark from the first one and done the same thing. And now what we've got to do is to cut those out. If you don't have a bandsaw, then it's quite easy to do using a hacksaw, but I'm just going to take this across to the bandsaw and cut it over there. I've cleaned up the edges just with a file, and now I'm going to put it into this vise to do the bending. You don't need any special kind of kit for this, it's actually very straightforward. Just make sure you've got the bending point right exactly in position, tighten up, and then you can just pull this around gently, like so. It will spring back a little, so this is what I call my tweaking tool. Just again fairly gently, and that's now the bend done. I've bent the other corner and I've just trimmed off to size, and then it simply fits in like that. So the next thing we do is we create the actual flat plate of the tray itself. This is 0.6 thick stucco aluminium, and stucco just means these markings in here. If you use flat, it's entirely up to you. I just happen to like this. Cut it to size so it fits inside the tray there, but you'll also notice that down here it actually comes most of the way across the main support beam here. So what will happen is, if you get this fitted, it will go in like that. It's going to be riveted down in place, but it'll also be riveted under here. Word of warning, don't forget you're going to be covering up your leg holes. So I suggest you just measure and mark and cut out a section there and on this leg here, just to make sure that you don't foul anything. I've cut the notches out of the plate here in the area where the legs have got to come through, as I mentioned before, and everything's now assembled. So I'm using this backboard here just to push everything up, make sure it's fitted. And you'll notice I've actually got marked on here 2 black lines which are 50mm back. And the reason for that is that I don't want any of my rivets to come any further forward than that, because I'm going to use the ends of at least one end of those for another accessory. That could well be a pole rest or even a landing net holder. Not quite decided yet, but by leaving those blank it does give me the ability to insert things and make another holding point for accessories. I've marked every 60mm back from there where I'm going to put the rivets in, and I'm going to use these small 3.2mm rivets and just go straight in through the side of the angle and into the tube section there. I'm just using a couple of small clamps to hold everything together whilst I get the first few rivets in. Okay, that's got 4 of them in, so now I can release these clamps and things should now hold together pretty well. Still got to be careful of the back here because of course that's not fully attached yet. But at least now I can get the rest of these rivets in along the sides. So now I've got all the side rivets in, I can start doing the rivets down into the angle aluminium itself. Obviously at the back here I'm going to be drilling all the way through it, so I've just put this plate on the table just so that I've given myself an overhang and I don't end up drilling through my table here. Not that it really makes much difference because there's lots of holes anyway, but you've got to try, haven't you? Before you start, just push everything up nice and neatly against the back plate and then start to drill the first one, keeping hold of the plate. And then exactly as before, just start getting your rivets in. That's all the downward facing and sideways facing rivets finished. I've still got to put some heavy duty rivets in just in this section here because that's where it's going to take all the strain. And then a few rivets just in the back there. I'm going to use slightly heavier 4mm diameter rivets in this section here and in the actual main beam here. Simple reason being, this is where all the stress is being taken when these are on the legs and this is taking weight. Push against the back plate to keep everything straight and then just drill down. Same on this side, 2 in these and 2 in this one, and then it's just the back to do. And that's all the heavy duty stuff done. I'll just turn this over now and we'll use the lighter weight rivets in order to just hold this back plate down here. Once you've done that, it's just a question of a little bit of clean up, do the second one and we're finished. And here we are then folks, both trays complete. The only thing left now, of course, is to try them on the box down here. So if I put them onto the legs and just do the knobs up a little bit, same on the other side. And there we are. those are not going anywhere. Nice and firm. Well, I'm pleased about that. Just another few accessories to go. Anyway, that's it for this one. So I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you did, click the button. If you want to subscribe, you can. Until the next time, bye for now.